Welcome, Money Buddies, to this week's episode of Money Talk. This week we're talking about the end of an era, what Money Talk has meant, and what is next. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming, and let's get talking. As always, and as you've come to expect from this show over the years, today's episode is going to be a great one. Today's Money Buddy is me. This is the final episode of Money Talk. I'm excited to share some insights about what I've learned over the last 4 years of doing this podcast. I'm going to share some of the biggest takeaways that I've had over the years and what I've learned from hosting the show. And then, of course, we're going to talk about what's next. What am I doing next? So make sure you stay tuned for this last episode of Money Talk because it's a great one that's going to help you like every other episode we've had in over 4 years of making this podcast. And if you want to stay connected after this show ends, please send me an email. I'd love to stay in touch with those of you who have been listening over the years, and I would love to hear from you. It would mean a lot to hear from some of you who've been listening over the years about what you've thought of the show, maybe what Money Talks have meant to you, what kind of Money Talks you've been able to start from the show. But let's go ahead and get into it with an introduction of today's Money Buddy. Today's Money Buddy is me. I have hosted this podcast, Money Talk, since September of 2021. I started this podcast because I was always talking about money to my wife. And we quickly realized that it would be a good idea if I started sharing it with an audience online. So that's what led to the birth of this podcast. The show has evolved a lot over the years. But there's one thing that hasn't changed at all, and that's the music of this podcast. Surprisingly, I will randomly find myself whistling it or having the tune stuck in my head. But I think it's crazy that of all the things that have changed over the years, whether it was the name of the podcast, the cover art, the format, all the different things that we adjusted and tweaked, the music stayed the exact same. But a little bit more about me. I am a candidate for CFP certification, and I should be getting that CFP designation here within the next 6 months or so. And I'm a financial planner now. When I started this podcast, I was working in a call center, and then I moved jobs into marketing, graduated from college, became a marketing manager, left my marketing career, and moved into financial planning. So needless to say, a lot has changed in my life, but the one thing that stayed the same was this podcast and the music on this podcast, hilarious enough. The other new thing that has happened since starting this podcast is that I'm now the host of a new podcast, Financial Planning for Young Adults. It's a podcast for those who feel like financial planning is only for the wealthy. I want to help make it simple, easy, and approachable. That new show is off to a fantastic start, and it's been great over the last several months since I started it. The link to that show is, of course, in the show notes, and you can subscribe to it wherever you're listening to this show right now. But let's get into this week's money talking points. The first one is, what is this podcast meant to you? And the second one is, how do you start a money talk? The third one is, how is financial planning helpful? With those money talking points in mind, let's get talking and get into the final episode of Money Talk. The first money talking point is, what is this podcast meant to you? And I would love to hear from those of you listening, especially if you've been listening for years. What is the podcast meant for you? Because I have learned so much from hosting this podcast. Even just now while recording this, I realized that I started this clear back when I worked at the call center at a credit union, all the way through a complete career change, graduating from college. A whole bunch of things have gone on in the last over 4 years since I started this podcast. But I've learned so much from hosting, just how to create a podcast, how to create content, how to network, how to meet people. And that is what has led me to become a future certified financial planner and work with people, helping them develop financial plans and solve one of the most awesome problems there is to solve in our money. It's helped me stay connected with my own money over the years and learn so much. I realized a long time ago, while I was going through college, working at that credit union I keep mentioning, that I was super interested in personal finance. I took a real liking to it and really enjoyed solving that complex puzzle that is our money and fitting it into every other aspect in our life. And it did take me a while working in marketing to finally make the career change to really go directly into finance. And this podcast helped me stay connected to money and helped me learn a lot about money. And of course, this show also introduced me to a ton of great people. If you're interested in money or creating content around money, FinCon is the place to be. It's such a fun conference. It's where I've met a ton of great people. A lot of the best guests on this podcast have come from FinCon. Because the thing that this podcast has allowed me to do is take those podcasts that I've listened to for many more years longer than I ever created the show. And I was able to meet those people in person, which is pretty cool. So that's a a huge piece of this podcast that it's been really exciting and fun to meet the people that I listen to talk about money and that I learned so much from. But I'd love to hear what this podcast has meant to you from each of you listening. I would appreciate an email or a comment on social media. I would love to hear more about what Money Talk has meant over the years. But the second money talking point here is, how do you start a money talk? This is such a foundational question to the podcast. I love every now and then slipping in a question like this to some of our great money buddies over the year of how do you start a money talk or what is a money talk? But the key thing that I have learned over 4 years is to start with something simple. Take a very basic situation and present it to someone else as a conversation before you really get into your own conversation. That way you can break the ice and understand that talking about money is okay. Open up a dialogue about money, and then you can understand if it's going to be super awkward, if it's something you want to get into further. Maybe the person you're talking to isn't a great person to talk to about money, so then you go talk to someone else. But once you get comfortable bringing up general topics and asking general high-level questions, then you can move into your situation. But once you do get into your situation, keep it simple. The main thing to avoid when you're talking about money is the numbers, because guess what? They're not necessary. Money is so much more than just math. You don't have to lay out every single dollar sign just to start a money talk. And I think that's what's so amazing. It's all about talking about these different principles, these different ideas, like how do you save for retirement? How do you avoid credit card debt? How do you save outside of retirement for goals here and now? All these different things are just fun principles and ideas to talk about that all have something to do with our money. It's really when you start getting into the longer term financial planning that numbers can be helpful to help you really see how much money you'll have, how much money can you plan on, all those sort of things. But the early conversations around financial planning are also just around values, goals, and principles, just like all of our money talks can be. You can learn a lot from people just by talking about money with them and by talking about money principles. So I want you all to go out and start a money talk in honor of this podcast coming to the end. Start it around something simple and around a financial principle that you want to learn more about from other people, because that's how we do better with money together. You've heard me say that for 4 years. It could be something along the lines of, what is an IRA? How do you save in an IRA? How do you save for retirement? Do you use our company's 401k? How did you start investing? Do you invest with index funds? How do you pay off credit card debt? How do you use credit card rewards? What kind of financial challenges come with having a kid? What kind of financial challenges come with buying a home or buying a car? Can I financially withstand changing jobs? Can I survive a career change financially? How do I budget? How do you budget? Those are all great ways to start simple and easy conversations about some really cornerstone financial principles. So if you reach out to me and send me an email, let me know if you want the 7 money talking points, and I'd be happy to send it over. But there are a lot more great questions to ask. And guess what? It doesn't have to be specific about the numbers. And I think that's what scares so many of us out of talking about money. We feel like we have to just get financially naked, so to speak, right? And have to share all of our specific numbers, share our entire net worth. And you just don't have to when you're having simple money talks with friends or coworkers or family members. So go out and start a money talk and avoid mentioning a single number and see how it goes. It's likely going to go a lot better. And here is the real kicker of a great first question to ask. Walk up to someone and say, hey, what does money mean to you? And you're likely going to get a long pause. And then they're going to say, I guess I'm not sure. Maybe they haven't thought about it too much. And then they'll say, well, money to me means maybe spending time with my family. Maybe it means going on awesome vacations. Maybe it means being able to stay home and enjoy the home that I live in. The real question is, does money allow you to live a more fulfilling life? Does it allow you to be more free? Does it give you opportunity? These are all great directions to head with this question. Opportunity is one of the biggest things that my wife and I like to hit on when someone asks us this question. We want to make sure to have opportunity within our life to do what we want to. So if you were to come up to me or send me an email and say, what does money mean to you, Skylar? My wife and I, we would both answer something along the lines of, money provides us opportunity to make decisions to do the things that we want to do. Whether it's choosing to work or choosing not to work, choosing to travel or choosing to stay home, it's all about opportunity for us. And managing our money and having more money talks is a way that we can have more opportunity in our life. Talking about money with other people is a way to open doors to new opportunities. Maybe someone connects you with someone that can start that career change that you're scared to do. Maybe talking about money with someone opens the door to say, yeah, I've never maxed out my IRA before, but this person gave me a great idea on how I can do it next year. That's a huge opportunity just because you talked about money. And that's what's so amazing about this. That's why I kept pushing for the podcast Money Talk. That's why we've kept going for over 4 years, is because it's just so fun to learn from other people. And that's one of the saddest things about moving on. It's going to be missing the great money talks that we've had with so many money buddies over the year. I have always enjoyed it, and I remember some of the very first interviews when I learned some great strategies on how to teach your kids how to handle money with giving them part of the budget. That was one of the things that I learned in one of the very first interviews, and it stuck with me to this day. There's been so many great money talks that have helped shape and change the way that I've invested, the way that we budget, the way that we manage our money, the way that we talk about money. There are so many things that we've learned over the years because of the great money buddies on this show. And I'm going to miss that part of the show for sure. But like I said, it's time to move on with the podcast. And I want to move on to the third money talking point here. How is financial planning helpful? This is a little bit of a lead-in and an explanation about the next phase of my career and my new podcast, Financial Planning for Young Adults. Because I think financial planning really helps you move from the reactionary state with money to a proactive state, because you can begin to plan for things, hence the name financial planning. You can take the money that you have and use it to take advantage of opportunities in the future, instead of trying to use money to tape over holes in your financial situation. I love the idea of financial planning because it's a plan with our money. It's one of the most complex and cool puzzles that we get to solve. It really takes the question of what does money mean to you, and a financial plan gives it a superpower and gives you the ability to actually hit on what money means. That's what Financial Planning for Young Adults, my new podcast, is all about. It's still new at this point, but I've been doing the show for a few months, and it's really a show that's all about helping people understand that financial planning is simple and that you can understand it at a much easier level because it doesn't have to be complex. So often we feel like financial planning is only for the wealthy, or once we've reached a certain asset threshold. But it is possible to have financial planning be simple, easy, and something that sets you up for success in the future without having to reach certain wealth thresholds or anything like that. And now that Money Talk is coming to an end, and we're getting to the end of this episode and the end of the show as a whole, please head over to Financial Planning for Young Adults and subscribe over there and share the show with a young adult in your life. We have some great episodes coming out over there, and I know you're going to enjoy them. And that does it for the podcast. This is going to be the last and final episode of Money Talk. I know it's sad, and honestly, I am sad to end the show, but all good things must come to an end, right? I've realized so much has gone on in my life while this podcast has been the one thing that I've done weekly for over 4 years. But if you want to continue to connect and follow me online, search Financial Planning for Young Adults wherever you're listening to this podcast, or please send me an email. And of course, if you're looking to get started with budgeting or financial planning, please reach out, because I would love to help each and every one of you with your money. And thank you for listening to this podcast, Money Talk. Over the last 4+ years, we've been able to have some fantastic money talks, and I hope this show has helped you in any way at all with your money. I know it's helped me learn more than I ever could have thought with money, both with numbers and beyond that. And if you would like to stay connected, please subscribe to Financial Planning for Young Adults. The link is in the show notes. You could also send me an email, and I'd love to stay in touch. And remember, the best way to learn from this podcast is to go and have a money talk with a fellow money buddy. Thank you for listening to my podcast, Money Talk. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming, and for the last time on this show, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Money Talk. This show is provided for informational and entertainment purposes and may not be specific to your unique situation. Please be sure to do additional research before making any financial decisions.